All right, friendos, here we are. Like I just promised you, we have the Super Castlevania 4 race coming up with Eagleeye Jones and Tinnue. So, good luck to the both of you, and take it away.
Hello everybody. My name is D&D Nat 21. I will be doing the commentary for this race. We're going to be having a fantastic race of Super Castlevania 4 between Eagleeye Jones and Tinnue. Both of these people are fantastic runners with great PBs. I'm going to be going through the details of this game, the certain techniques that they use, as well as some of the stories and the names of the bosses. We're going to have a fun time. So we're going to go ahead and get started as soon as we can. I'm going to begin the countdown. So, beginning in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Now, Super Castlevania 4 is a game presented by Konami, produced in 1991 for the Super Nintendo. This is where Simon Belmont is going to be making his way through the many stages to defeat Count Dracula. But first he has to deal with the many bosses that are laid out before him to try and stop his paths. One of the things that we're going to be dealing with in stage 1 is picking up the crosses. One of these sub-weapons, there are multiple sub-weapons within this game. The axe, the stopwatch, the cross, as well as holy water. But the one that we want is the cross, and we're going to try to get a multiplier all the way up to the top, which is 3, and try to throw them in certain ways in order to make sure that they overlap to stack damage. One other thing that you're going to notice as well is that Simon doesn't run through these levels. No, he power walks through all of them. So one of the ways that we're going to try to move a little bit faster is going to be taking damage boosts, where Simon is actually going to be pushed forward in a slightly faster manner than normal. Health management in this game is very important, as you're going to notice the players are going to be going down to below half very often, and going to be collecting the meat along the way in order to make sure that they can optimize every single step that they take throughout the stage. The boss at the end of this stage, known as the Stables by the way, is Rodane, the Undead Knight. What we're going to see as they move through the stage is that they're going to use some jumps to time the timing on the crosses and throw them, just so that Rodane, as he's coming in, is going to be a blink of an eye, but just make sure you focus up on this. Now, both of the racers are pretty much neck and neck. You're going to notice that for a little while, first 3 stages of this game, it's going to be pretty similar all the way through. So, but the game Super Castlevania 4 can be a little difficult at times, depending on how things go. There's not too much RNG in this game. A lot of it is manipulatable, and there is a strategy that goes through, or a pattern that can go through each stage. But sometimes the game can just not play nice, and hopefully both of our racers are going to be able to take care of whatever the game can throw at them. Both of the racers doing a great job with the Medusa boosts. That requires very specific timing and an immediate reaction from jumping off the stairs, getting the plant boosts, and making their way to Rodane. A couple of timed jumps. First phase down. Very nicely done by both of the runners. Stage 2, the Swamp. Now, the Swamp has a fantastic rhythm, a nice, calm beginning with the purple hands that are actually, there are specific locations. There are specific locations for the hands, but unfortunately, there's no real guarantee on how to read them. So they're going to throw some crosses low and make sure that they can clear the ground from the purple hands as much as they can, while also taking the spiders to boost them forward. Unfortunately, in this stage, the animals are really more of a threat than any of the undead minions that Dracula may have spawned to take out Simon Belmont and kind of slow his approach to the castle front. Skeletons, zombies, no worries. Bats, frogs, birds, those are the headaches that we're going to be seeing here in the Swamp. As another thing, the boss of this stage is not at the end. It's in the middle. Medusa. Another blink and you will miss it type of boss. Some fantastic jumps. The swamp water here slowly pulls you down, so some properly timed jumps allow you to just kind of skip across the surface of the water without being slowed down too severely. But if you miss your jump input ever so slightly, you'll essentially clonk into the swamp and have to recover just a couple of seconds, so to speak. But it can be a problem if you press it early, and Simon stands in place for a moment. Oh, there is a dagger there. A couple of the sub-weapons in this game are not so out of the way. Some of them are actually directly in our path. We'll also see that later on stage 6, as well as a couple of other locations. We are going to do our best to avoid them, but sometimes the enemy's patterns can kind of knock us back into them, and then we have to rebuild our combo from the very beginning once more. Both players are doing fantastic. Once again, blink and you miss it, boss. The river on this stage is actually timed based on when you go into the level. So if you can use all of the boosts optimally and you have a proper amount of health, you will be able to make it to almost the end of the stage before the river changes direction, and you need to jump to avoid the pull, and that slows you down. Here we have a couple of the imps that are going to be pushing our racers forward, managing the health properly. Good boosts from both runners. Great health management. Fantastic times. Let's get some hype in chat, guys. Come on. Stage 3, the caves. This is where health management really determines how fast you essentially can go in the second half. The Mudmen are RNG, not in their spawn location, but rather in their walking direction. So some of the patterns here are a little bit more difficult to handle, as you'll see the racers jumping over the Mudmen and trying to use the down whip in order to break them to create a moment of iframes of sorts that allow them to avoid contact with the enemy. Now, the larger Mudmen do 4 pips of damage, while the smaller ones do 3. Another reason as to why, if we want to jump over them and make things a little easier for us, as well as have more health towards the end of the stage, you want to have contact if you are able to, well, if you're not able to jump over them, with a smaller Mudman, allowing you to optimize the health later on. Here in the waterfall stage, you're going to notice a really unique bit of physics when it comes to the rings. Now, normally when Simon is on a platform, there is gravitational arc physics that is applied to Simon, but when he is on a ring, there is actually pendulum physics that applies to his sprite. Therefore, there is no downward motion, and it is based on a circular motion around the centered ring. So if we hit the ring from the top, we can actually use that as a way of pushing away from the center and jumping to another platform within the stage. This is known as a ring glitch or ring clip, for depending on how quickly you use it, but you're going to see this technique used a couple of times throughout the run. This is used to cut the stage a good couple of seconds, about 20 seconds in total throughout the entirety of the game. So if it can be done safely and consistently, you're able to save a good portion of time, plus it looks really cool. Both of our racers are doing a fantastic job moving through the stages. We are getting to the point now in stage 3 where it is essentially a point of no return. Things become a little bit risky, and the game turns it up ever so slightly as we move towards the Orphic Vipers at the end of the stage. A twin-headed snake-like dragon that takes up half of the stage, and unfortunately also causes a heavy amount of lag. One of the things in this game is that while it is a beautiful game, there is a heavy amount of sprite overload that kind of affects the frame roll that is in place. So sometimes there are just too many things on screen, and the frame roll that is in place slows the game down. A way that we can do that is to prevent Simon's whip from being out for too long, as there is multiple sprites involved in that. Killing an enemy produces multiple sprites, and in some cases, water and just boss sprites is enough to slow it down. So by overlapping the crosses, a couple of very specific timed crosses, we're going to try our best to reduce the amount of time that Orphic Vipers is on the screen and slowing down the game. It's very important. You're going to see this later on as well in stage 4, where they really try to present mode 7 with a lot of beauty and unfortunately a lot of slowing down. Stage 4. Stage 4 has a very unique theme to it. It's essentially the mode 7 level where even the second half is moving background by spinning and rotating. There is the tunnel of lag, or the tunnel of love, as the community likes to call it. As we try our best not to kill anything, we love the enemies in the Stage 4. We're gonna get some damage boosts that move through the level and come to the boss Puexel. There's a very interesting naming theme that happens in this stage. All of the bosses have names that are backwards that best describe them. So Puexel is Licks You Up, the middle boss here that we're going to see. And what we're also going to see is a Coronaut at the end of the stage, the Stone Golem, which is Ton of Rock backwards. Both of our runners making fantastic work of Puexel. Here we come into stage 4, the spinning room. What are we going to do? Are we going to avoid all of the Medusa heads? Are we going to kill them? Are we going to destroy them? No. We're going to stand still and crouch. Both of the Medusas here are based on Simon's position, and it is essentially a sine wave. So one of the easiest ways to get through this stage is to stay perfectly still, crouching, until the Medusas just stop. Sometimes as a casual player you might be freaking out as there's spikes all the way around the room and no real place to go, but all you really need is where you land. No stress. Now, there is a interesting part to stage 4 that some of our some runners do indeed like to do. We'll see if it's going to happen here. Zip is an interesting technique in stage 4 that can use a compression technique and basically to skip through the wall. We're going to see if some of our racers are going to use it. It's kind of risky. For those who are familiar with Super Castlevania 4, we decide whether or not it's worth it depending on how we feel with the run. But here we're going to see Tinnue currently making her way into the tunnel of lag, as I mentioned before. We're going to try to avoid any of the skeletons the best that we can, because the red sprites that pop out on top from the doors in the background actually cause so much lag that if you miss the jump, unfortunately, you might end up getting the spawns in bad locations and slowing the game down further.
Yeah, come on, Tin, do the zip.
Oh.
No! Unfortunate, no! That is what can happen just by having a small little distance of about a pixel or two timing. It is a very specific technique, but unfortunately one of the results is you get crushed. And thankfully, though, it is not too much of a time loss, as you are able to recover very quickly at the beginning of the stage and then go through the rest of the stage, picking up the cross in the beginning of stage 5. It is indeed it's advantageous to do this, as normally you would have to spend about 12 with the new technique that has currently been developed for the zip, 14 seconds of time save, but you do risk about 20 seconds overall loss with the death, and also gathering your cross into stage 5, getting that combo up. But it is still anybody's game, as Super Castlevania 4 has its ways. Right now, Eagleeye Jones currently taking the lead.
We have a quick moment.
Absolutely.
So we have $5 here from George, the previous runner who was supposed to show Tohu, and saying Deutsche Telekom is a reliable internet service provider that would never sell you 15 megabyte upload speed and then don't actually provide that to you. Never. Sorry for messing up the schedule. Here's a $5 to make up for it. Hopefully I can show you all some Tohu later. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to see the run a little bit later again. And thank you for the $5 donation.
Oh, well, we can't really help with tech issues. They happen, but thank you very much for that donation. And we'll hopefully get to see that game later on, if there's time within the schedule. In the meantime, both of our runners now in stage 5. Stage 5 is essentially a transitional stage where we are finally at Dracula's front door. But in stage 5, our biggest enemy is the RNG harpies that carry these fleamen around that will try to chase Simon down, as you can currently see on the screen, and will harass Simon in a very unique way. So what we're going to try to do is throw crosses in a proper time, proper location, make sure that we catch the harpies before they come onto screen. There's as much as we can do about it. We try to make sure that they're not way too high up. But, you know, sometimes Super Castlevania 4 is Super Castlevania 4. The second half is all about boosts, making sure that you can take care of the enemy that tries to assault you right away, the lovely skeletons that we, in this Super Castlevania 4 community, have named Richards. They will try to jump at you. You get rid of him, jump over the other bat, use the boost, and make it into the staircase into Dracula's front door. Stage 6. This is where the game turns up difficulty. Basically, all of the enemies have more health. The game designers said, you know what would be really fun? Enemies in front of death pits, as well as chandeliers for this specific level that creak and groan and give you stress the second you walk in. Now, the anxiety chandeliers, as I like to call them, are a set of chandeliers that you'll see coming up soon, where they swing back and forth and you essentially try to jump across. It's simple platforming. But there are 3 types of rotations that you can go through. You can do a 3-cycle, which is safe, 2-cycle, which is a little bit less safe but faster, and the 1-cycle, which is the top tier strats and requires very, very narrow window timing, proper inputs, and is extremely fatal if you're off by even so much as a second. No stress, right, guys?
Nope. I'm not doing it. Didn't do the 1-cycle.
Oh, come on.
Just want to remind everybody.
Before breakfast.
Just wanted to remind everybody that's watching that we're doing this for the Save the Children charity. So if you have anything, please, it's going to a good, fantastic cause. And, we can get to see more fantastic races and more events and contests like this. So, let's go chat and see what we can do. Let's get those incentives going.
Couldn't have said it better.
The other half of stage 6, now that we're passed through the chandeliers, the ectoplasms that you note are a very flashy type of opponent, type of enemy. One thing that I'd like to also point out is that later on in the half of this game, a little bit of a flashing light warning. One of the bosses is very, very bright. You'll see it coming up at about stage 9. You notice that as with most Super Nintendo games, there's a lot of flashing lights, but this one's a little bit intense, so just a quick sensitivity warning for anybody who might be a little bit sensitive to that. The ectoplasms will chase you around and will bounce across and slow the game down, so we do want to try to get rid of them as fast as possible. Moving now through the stages where we're going to be approaching essentially the Bone Heckway, as we like to lovingly call it, where it is just essentially a hallway filled with enemies that will bounce you around in damage cycles. As I had mentioned, the designers really started to place the enemies in certain locations that if you get stuck in them and you haven't taken your time to remove the enemies and you've been trying to shortcut your way through it, they're like, no. You're going to be stuck in this for a little while. But a couple of good properly timed crosses make sure that we get rid of the red skeletons. Anything that's red in this game expected to do 1 more pip of damage. I don't know why. Red cars go faster, red enemies do more damage. We're going to remove a lot of the enemies, try to boost our way through, and get towards the dancers at the end of this stage. The dancers are a fun little boss, as if you don't know how to time the crosses properly, they can get in your face, you can be stuck in the corner, be bounced around, but a couple of properly timed crosses will turn those dancers into a very short time, turn them to mush. Here we're going to see that even the tables of this game are out to get you. That's right, you thought the animals were bad when we didn't have to deal with skeletons, but now the inanimate objects are coming to life as well. What is this, Walt Disney?
Andrew and Chris, hey. Thanks for joining.
Some fantastic community members joining us in the chat. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I can't express enough, by the way, how great the community is for Super Castlevania 4. So if anyone is interested in picking up the game, it is indeed a fun speedrun. I promise you, it's fun, not frustrating at all. You know, give it a shot. The community is there to help. There's a fantastic wiki for all of the tech, all of the stages. That is Castlevania speedruns, as well as tutorials by world record holders and the like. There's tons of material for anybody starting and anybody who is you know, halfway through learning the speedrun as well. Now, the library. The library, which is headed by the knight Sir Grakul, is an interesting platforming type level where there's shortcuts based on the book jump. We're going to see if we can get our runners to give that a shot, which is a very small frame window type jump, which allows us to kind of skip a rotation in the floating platform books that we're going to be seeing coming up soon. Some fantastic. Oof! That's a tight jump. Well done from our runners. Making their way through the red dog as, once again, does more damage, so we either want to remove him or jump over him. By removing the candle that's above him, we actually prevent him from jumping. There is a line inside of its pattern that says if there's a candle, jump. So if you remove the candle, there is no worry about him jumping up and making contact with you, and you can easily just jump over him. But if you go for the meat in the next window, you end up triggering the animal a little bit earlier, and there is no way for you to be able to do that at the top of the steps. So it's just better to remove the dog and try to optimize your approach through the rest of the stage. Here we come to the needle seedlings, a little bit of a crouch. This is a very close race, guys. Come on, guys, let's get some hype in chat. Both of our runners coming up to Sir Grakul, where he has two phases, one with his axe and the other with the sword. You can manipulate his pattern a little bit based on how far you are away from him. He decides whether or not to go with throwing the axe or summoning fireballs from it. But the second stage, where he wields a shield and a sword, there's actually a moment where he can regenerate a bit of health if you are unfortunate enough, and where he decides to hold the shield is a little unpredictable. So both of our runners now are, wow, very, very close. This is insane. Stage 8, or as we love to call it, Stage Hate. This level is not about the enemies being our enemies. This is about the level being our enemies. The needles, they kill you. The ground, it's blood or acid, depending on what you're playing. One slight note, actually, I'd like to point out is both of our players are currently playing on the Japanese version, as everything is currently blood. When the game was ported over to the essentially the Americas, there was some changes that need to be done, some censorships. On the American version, the blood that you see pouring from the ground is actually green. It's acid instead. You'll notice that also some of the statues that were more exposing, one could say, were covered up, and a lot of the symbology was then was taken away. A couple of the crosses were taken off of graveyards, and some of the names were scribbled away. Stage 8, though, the enemies, they're going to be our friends. They're going to help us move through the stage. We're going to use some damage boosts to make sure that we try to avoid any type of contact with some of the needles that are instantly killing you, because you get iframes after when you take those damage boosts. Excuse me. So those iframes are going to help you go through any of the obstacles that might slow you down. Here we're going to fall through a couple of the steps, make sure that we don't get stuck on any of them, and use anything, as I mentioned before, to damage us to make sure that we are safe moving through the needles. Now, moving through the Palpatine spikes, as I like to call them, as I swear the sound says, do it. These needles passing through are not too fatal, but some of the ones that are going to be up ahead are extremely fatal, and sometimes will... Oh, unfortunately. Oh, Tin tried to go for the Vegas, came so close to it. took the risk. Didn't pay off. Unfortunately, Vegas is essentially a risk. If you go for the one cycle on Vegas, it can be time saving or it's extremely risky. Unfortunately, the game can just decide, nope, that's it. That's just not happening. Eagleeye now catching up on Frankenstein, making short work of him. Frankenstein's damage box and his hitbox do not overlap, so you can actually stand toe to toe and whip up without any issues whatsoever.
Hey, Kenshin Trek. Thanks for joining. One of the big mentors of this game, Kenshin Trek. Just on a side note.
Indeed. Kenshin Trek is, we like to refer to Kenshin Trek as sensei, as he does indeed help both, he helps new runners who are new to the game. He's constantly in the chat supporting us, asking us questions, making sure that we reflect on which stage we can improve on and which ones, we think we like and don't like. He's also a fantastic runner, great whip-only runner, and as I mentioned, fantastic member of the community.
And he's gonna run this game tonight himself on Game Over Cancer, right?
Yes, so on Game Over Cancer, that'd be tomorrow, Sunday.
Oh, tomorrow.
So that's going to be for another good cause as well. As I mentioned, everyone in the community, we love doing things for good causes. So stage 9, as you can see, is a beautiful, beautiful golden stage. A big contrast from the dark stage 8 and the greens and the blues that we had seen before. But don't let that lure you into a false sense of security. The enemies here, they're in positions to knock you into the pits. The golden pots here that you see dangling from the ceiling, they slow down the game with the sprites that they produce, and also they dissolve as soon as you touch them. So if you take a moment to slow down because you need to whip an enemy, you're dead. And thankfully, we know the locations, we know how to throw those crosses and make sure that the enemies don't stay on the screen for too long, because even the death animations that I mentioned before are more sprites, slowing us down even further. The boss at the end of the game, at the end of this level, Zap's Bats, is a golden bat that starts as 1 and then breaks apart into 3 halfway through its life total. One thing that I'd mentioned before, the flashing lights, this is indeed the boss that is that I would very much take care for. So just be careful, as right now, Eagleeye Jones making his way through the quick ascent, taking care of the skeletons and making sure that he moves his way up those stairs with the fastest pace. The stairs do indeed slow us down, so what we try to do here is we try to jump from the ledge and land on the stairs the best that we can. This is very much an optimization, but is also somewhat risky, as in the game there is essentially a dead pixel between certain locations on the stairs, and if you hit it at a certain angle, Simon will pass through the stairs, regardless on if you're holding up or not. It's just something that happens. It's what we refer to as stairs boss in the community. Both of our runners making their way up to Zap Bats now. This is a very, very tight race. 22 hits breaks Zap Bats, so our racers will be counting the best that they can to make sure that the bats break at a certain height, as the 3 bats start moving based on Zap Bats' break position. If he is low, the momentum of the bats will be less severe and therefore far more controllable for the racers to overlap their crosses and do insane amounts of damage. Wow. Wow. Okay. We have a race, ladies and gentlemen. This is insane. Okay. Stage A. The Clockwork Tower. Would it be a Castlevania game without a clockwork stage? Like, really? Here we're going to see some moving gears, Well, this is a vertical stage, and we all know vertical stages, well, when you go up, you only go down once. So, we're going to do our best to try to stay on these platforms and see how the enemies treat us. The boss at the end of this stage is the mummy, where there's a little bit of RNG based on the location, the spawn location, so you can get a good mummy or a bad mummy location. But hopefully, the Pharaoh is kind to us. The gears here are also sprites. The teeth are sprites, so they slow us down, unfortunately. So what we can do sometimes is try to overload the game. One little trick that we can do sometimes is overload the game, and by hitting the sprite limit and forcing it to move the camera up, it doesn't spawn what is supposed to be there. This is something that has happened twice before. I unfortunately forgot to mention it. Once on stage 3 and once on stage 8. This is usually done with the dragon heads, as the dragons are multiple sprites, and by moving forward and having a dragon stay on the screen for a brief moment, we overload the game and they don't spawn the enemy in the next screen. This is useful for this stage, as we can have the enemy be killed as Simon's whip is out and a cross is on the screen, all of which are sprites. And when the enemy is destroyed, we overload the sprite, lowering the amount of teeth that are on the gears, thus slowing the game down. There was a fantastic quick ascent by Tin, taking advantage of some great timing and some spawn manipulation in order to get the axe to hit her into a location where she could grab the ring thereafter, avoiding all of the enemies and having to whip them down. Second half of the quick ascent, fantastically done. As she makes her way to the mummy. Let's hope that you get good mummy spawn for both of our racers. For anyone who is a music fan, Super Castlevania 4 has a fantastic music profile. So if you enjoy this song, you are probably very familiar with the soundtrack and the previous ones, Bloody Tears, as mentioned by Chad. Also, Eagleeye Jones has done a remaster of this. So if anyone wants to give it a listen with a little bit of a small little change, go ahead and check out that. He did a fantastic job. We use it for our races and any other tournament events that we do within the community. Oh, wow. This is close. This is still anybody's race. Stage B. The final stage.
Tin is just being kind to me. She died twice on purpose to give me a chance.
Nah. I died because Vegas decided to let me die, I guess.
Yeah, there was no recovering on that, Vegas. It was just like, no, not today. So, stage B is a boss rush, where there's essentially the Council of Three with Slagra, Gaibon, and Death, and finally Dracula. But first, there's a secret boss that nobody really knows is there. The one that I'd mentioned previously, Stairs Boss, where we have to deal with steps that basically fall underneath Simon, fall away, and can kind of ruin that boost was a little... the Stairs Boss here is, well, if you go or press down or miss input and you hang out on the steps for far too long, the steps fall away and you perish into the saw blade waiting below. Also, one of the challenges of this level is essentially to try to collect as many hearts as possible, as we're going to be needing them for Dracula and Slagra and Death. Running low on hearts in these bosses takes a lot of time to recover, and the longer these bosses stay on screen, the more chaotic their patterns get, and the more time that you end up risking. A little bit of a close contact there. That was a very strange little moment there. But everything is A-okay. We are still moving on. Here we have the platforms, which can be manipulated. Sometimes you can get a fast pattern, sometimes you get a slow pattern. It all really depends on your location, but your position does indeed determine what type of a pattern you get. The spikes that are located on the bottom of these platforms are one-hit kills, so we can't touch them. And you can also get crushed underneath these platforms, one other thing. This is such a close race. This is anybody's game. Slagra. Now, Slagra, we lovingly called the Destroyer of Dreams. Slagra has a 15% chance to charge in his first phase as one of his attacks. Normally he just shoots fireballs and just you can duck out of his way, but if you're unfortunate enough to get the charge on 15% in the first phase, it can throw off your pattern where you can overlap your crosses. As you can see, Slagra only has one moment where when to do damage to him, you can't really chain and get the overlap. He has iframes. So what we have to do is try to get the crosses to be on top of him all at the same time so the damage stacks. If he charges, it's hard to get back into the rhythm. Both of our runners, though, making a fantastic job, getting some great time on Slagra, not having any issues. Slagra is indeed a sprinkle of RNG with a ton of skill involved if you can get the timing right. Here, some timing based on the visual cues of Gaibon spawning onto the screen will determine whether or not it is a quick kill. Both of our runners making short work of Gaibon, letting Gaibons be bygones, and making their way to death, as Dracula has essentially made a deal with death, and death has yet to claim Dracula's life. He defies death, and thus death works for him. A couple of place crosses, some audio cues, and some whips to overlap. Make short work of death from both of our runners. This is a very close race. Both of our runners have been putting a bunch of time into warming up for this event. It's showing clearly. Eagleeye Jones busting out 10x's with an average time of 36:15, 36:30 approximately. Doing a great job with that. He's all warmed up, ready to go. Tin is a fantastic runner. Doesn't even need to warm up, but she's been doing a little bit of setup beforehand. So this is so close. I can't even believe it. Dracula has 3 phases essentially. We're going to be doing with a fireball phase. At first, there is the summoned elemental phase in between, and then the final lightning phase. The meatball that he summons in between is based on his health. If we can get it to spawn if necessary, we can use it, but if not, we want to try to skip over it. This is so close. So once Dracula passes away for the 1,000th time, for all we know, in 100 years, there will be an animation where the orb drops, and time will be on orb collection. This is close.
Oh, GG Tin.
And time.
Oh, I don't know. I thought you finished already.
Nope.
And secondary orb finish in...
And time.
GG's.
GG Tin.
Nice.
I knew it would win. I knew it would win.
Nah, I wasn't sure after the Vegas switch. Really not.
That was an amazing job. Great job, both runners. Fantastically done. Tin, congratulations.
Yeah.
Very well done. You said that you were doing some PB runs just before, a little bit of warming up. You definitely had the PB advantage. Eagleeye Jones came in before, and you know what? Honestly, dude, you put in fantastic work. Great job.
Absolutely.
It was you should not be ashamed of that run at all. Really well done.
No, that run is really within the average that I established over the last 2 days, so I'm pretty happy, and I'm deathless.
Yes, that's always awesome for a marathon race. Because marathons, it's a lot of extra nerves. Races put on a lot of extra nerves. So if you can go deathless in such a race, that's awesome.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you guys wanted to talk about? Anything you guys wanted to shout out?
I just wanted to say, I mean, I've raced with Tin before within the weekly CV4 races that we do every Sunday. But this time was a very special occasion because I got to race Tin like in a face-off, in a 1 versus 1, and it was my huge honor to race the second best German runner in the world of this game. So yeah, I'm happy.
And Tin?
Yeah, I want to say a big thank you first of all for Eagleeye Jones doing this race, because we kind of we had a last minute submission kind of like we just saw it the
Yeah.
evening. And I was like, yeah, let's race it. And he was down immediately. I was like, sure, let's have some fun. So, yeah, huge shout outs to you first of all. Amazing run, Deathless. That's amazing for a race too. And special thanks, I think, from both of us for Ned's great commentary. I always get super hyped, and it's so hard. If you do a run or a race and he's commentating, it's so hard to stay calm because he's really feeling you throughout the whole run. It's amazing. So really good job on that. Thanks guys for having us. So if you like the run and you're good to do so, please donate. It's for a great cause. It's always good to see the speedrun community come together like this and trying to make an effort for charity. That's always good. So yeah, if you liked it, if you're okay to do so, please donate.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well said, Tin.
And that concludes us for Super Castlevania 4. Commentator?
Well, that was I think I speak for everybody in chat if I say that was pretty awesome. Super tight race with some, if I say so myself, excellent commentary.
Thank you.
And yeah, that was pretty great. I'm pretty sure everybody enjoyed. And yeah, friends, sadly, this is the end of this race. But next up, I heard from a little bird told me that we're going to see the Tohu run next, which was supposed to be before this race, but because of technical difficulties, we swapped them around. But yeah, it's coming up next. So don't go anywhere if you want to see some Tohu action. Yeah, we'll head into a short intermission and we will be right back after that. So don't go anywhere.